Have you ever seen a post like this and wondered, is it true? Perhaps if you're a history buff and know your history, you'll know that it's only partially true. And I've seen variations of this going around quite a bit lately. So I wanted to address it today through my reality framework, focusing on the letter E. Because one of the biggest mistakes that we make online is believing that if something contains true facts, it must be telling the whole truth. But evidence isn't just about what's included, it's also about what's left out. This post says many people don't know that Democrats were the party of the KKK, while Republicans were the party that freed the slaves. Now let's start with the evidence. There are important historical truths here, because the Republican Party was founded in the 1850s in opposition to the expansion of slavery. And Republican lawmakers played a major role in abolishing slavery. Abraham Lincoln. And yes, many white Southern Democrats defended slavery, segregation, and opposed Reconstruction. And during Reconstruction, the KKK functioned as a white supremacist terrorist organization that targeted Black Americans and white Republicans in an effort to restore white political control in the South. Those facts are real, undisputed. But here's what the post leaves out. Political parties are not frozen in time. And so over the next century, both parties experienced major political and ideological change. They basically flipped. Historians generally describe this as party realignment, beginning with the New Deal, accelerating through the Civil Rights era, and continuing over several decades. Voting coalitions, regional support, and party priorities shifted substantially. Now, the party names remain the same, but many of the people, political alliances, and ideological identities changed. That's the critical part of American history, and it's missing from this post. So the issue isn't that every sentence is false. The issue is that the only part of the historical evidence is presented. That's called selective history. So from a media psychology lens, we can look at why this works. Our brains naturally prefer simple stories over complicated ones. A post that says, these were the good guys and those were the bad guys is much easier to process than a century of political evolution. Psychologists call one reason for this confirmation bias. When information supports something we already believe or want to believe, we are less likely to stop and ask what might be missing. There's another psychological principle at work here called the framing effect. The way information is presented changes how we interpret it. So notice, this political graphic doesn't invent history. It simply selects certain historical facts while leaving out others. That changes the story. And in media psychology, we sometimes say that selection is persuasion. You don't always have to lie to influence people. Sometimes you only have to decide what people will and won't see. That's why context matters. So the issue is not that every sentence in this graphic is false. It's that it gives you selected evidence and asks you to treat it like the whole story. That's selective history. So before we share a post like this, we need to ask ourselves, what evidence am I being shown and what evidence am I not being shown? That's the reality check.